Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another exciting week of Español. This week we'll be covering Capítulo Cuatro, titled El Fin de Semana, or the weekend. So I'm excited to share this chapter with you. It's one of my favorites in the entire textbook. I know I say that a lot. I love them all. I'm a little bit biased, but especially this one is just it's fun. So that being said, after successful completion of this chapter, you should be able to identify vocabulary related to pastimes, sports, and places in the city. You should also be able to make plans and invitations and create sentences stating what you're going to do using the verb ir. Ir means to go. And then finally, you should be able to use both stem changing verbs and irregular yo verbs. So, as always, we're going to get started with a little bit of vocabulary review, just making sure that you feel comfortable with these vocab terms and that you know how to pronounce them correctly. So, this particular column on the left is titled Las actividades y las distracciones. So, activities and distractions. Over on the left, you have a series of items. So our first thing mentioned is to go mountain climbing or escalar montañas. We might also translate that as to scale mountains, escalar montañas. To write a letter, escribir una carta. To write an email, escribir un mensaje electrónico. To write a postcard, escribir una tarjeta postal. To go on a hike in the mountains, ir de excursión a las montañas. You can always leave the a las montañas part off and just say to go on a hike, ir de excursión. To read an email, leer el correo electrónico. To read the newspaper, leer el periódico. To read a magazine, leer una revista. To swim in the pool, nadar en la piscina, one of my favorite things. To hang out with, we say in English, or your book translates it more as to pass time or spend time. Literally, pasar el tiempo is to pass the time, but we might translate that in English as to hang out with someone, to spend time, any of those kind of things. We also have to walk around the city or to walk around the town, pasear por la ciudad or pasear por el pueblo. To practice sports, practicar deportes. To watch movies, ver películas, and to visit a monument, visitar un monumento. Some other things we see here in the photos are, you see on the right, this young lady skating. To skate in español es patinar, patinar. To sunbathe, or literally to take the sun, tomar el sol. To scuba dive, bucear. To ski, esquiar, something I've never done but always wanted to, esquiar. And then the last one, I found this one to be interesting, to ride a bike. Your book translates this one as pasear en bicicleta. Literally, pasear is to walk or pass through. So to pass through on a bike. Another expression instead of pasear en bicicleta is montar en bicicleta, montar. So you will see both of those. This chapter also incorporates a lot of deportes or sports, primarily basketball, baloncesto, cycling, ciclismo, the word team, equipo, water skiing, el esquí acuático, a hiker, el excursionista o la excursionista, golf, el golf, hockey, el hockey, a player, el jugador, la jugadora, swimming, la natación, the game, el partido, and you could always add el partido de baloncesto, el partido de fútbol, el partido de tenis, any of those kind of things. We have the word for ball, la pelota. So, and again, you can say la pelota de golf, la pelota de tenis, la pelota de voleibol. And of course, you have those sports there, el tenis, which is tennis, and el voleibol, which is volleyball. Also down on the left-hand side, we have some pretty common sports lingo here. To win, ganar, ganar. So you might ganar el partido, win the game. We have ser aficionado, and then you can add after that the word de, so to be a fan of, ser aficionado de. So I could say, yo soy aficionado de los Buccaneers. No soy aficionado de los voluntarios, or whatever. Here we have baseball, el béisbol. Football, el fútbol americano. Over here on the right, we have los lugares, or places. Those places include the house, la casa, where you might spend your weekend, the downtown area of your city, el centro, so like downtown Johnson City, el centro de Johnson City, the movie theater, el cine, the gym, el gimnasio, the museum, el museo, the restaurant, el restaurante. You also have some other words and expressions, otras palabras y expresiones. We have diversión, which means entertainment or fun. This one kind of repeats from earlier, el excursionista o la excursionista, a hiker. El fin de semana, again, refers to just the weekend in general, and that is the title of our chapter, el fin de semana. El lugar is a place. Over here you saw the plural of that, los lugares. El pasatiempo, a pastime or a hobby. Los ratos libres, or your spare time. And el tiempo libre, your free time. So I view these as being very similar. El tiempo libre, los ratos libres, or you could even say el rato libre, your spare or free time. And lastly, at the bottom, we see sports related, deportivo, and favorite, favorito. So you can combine those with multiple things. So mi equipo favorito es los Buccaneers, etc. Some other places that we see here pictured, we have over on the left, la iglesia, or the church, la iglesia, the cafe, el café, and the park, el parque. It's important for you to note there are different words in different countries, as you know. So instead of baloncesto for basketball, sometimes you just hear el basquetbol. Instead of piscina in Argentina specifically, they say la pileta. And in Mexico specifically, they say la alberca. So pileta, alberca, piscina, you can pick whichever of those you like. And then in Puerto Rico and La República Dominicana, instead of baseball, they just call it la pelota, literally the ball, la pelota. So you have some different options there. As always, I'd like to give you a moment to practice with some of these new vocabulary words that you've been learning. In this particular activity, I'd like for you to select the word or phrase that does not belong. So for example, in number one, we have bucear, to scuba dive, ir de excursión, to go on an excursion, or to go on a hike, you might say, leer una revista, to read a magazine, and esquiar, to ski. So of all these things, scuba diving, going on an excursion, reading a magazine, and skiing, it seems that reading a magazine is the one that doesn't fit. It doesn't require going anywhere. It's not an adventure, something fun that you're doing. So that's the one that does not fit. In number two, we have el baloncesto, basketball, el ciclismo, cycling, el voleibol, volleyball, and el fútbol, or soccer. So of all of these things, ciclismo is the one that doesn't fit because it does not involve a ball. All right, I hope that you get the gist here of what you're doing. I'd like for you to please take a moment and give numbers 3 through 6 a try. When you're ready, you can click play and we'll check all of your answers together. All right, so in número 3, we have la natación, or swimming, el cine, the movie theater, el café, the coffee shop, and la iglesia, the church. So of all of these things, it is obviously the swimming or natación that does not fit in here, simply because it's not a place that you go necessarily. Number 4, we have el golf, la aficionada, the fan, a female fan, el jugador, the player, and el excursionista, the hiker. So in each of these situations, we have a person, the fan, the player, the hiker, but el golf is not a person in this case. In número 5, we're given el periódico, the newspaper, el pasatiempo, the pastime, la revista, the magazine, and el correo, which can mean the email or the post office. So there are quite a few options here. In this case, I chose el pasatiempo because it's not something that you're physically reading in this case. In número seis, we're given ver películas to see a movie, ir al museo to go to the museum, practicar el hockey to practice your hockey, and leer un periódico to read the newspaper. So out of all of these options, I selected ir al museo to go to the museum. Hopefully you're feeling better about the meaning of each of these vocab terms as we progress, but I would like to give you just a smidge more practice. In this activity, you're actually looking at all of the photos and looking at what they're doing in the photo and trying to decide if that is cierto o falso based on what's specified there in the sentence. So in number one, it tells us that Gustavo y Simón pasean en bicicleta, or Gustavo and Simón, they're riding bikes. And we look at the picture here, it indeed pasean en bicicleta. Cierto, cierto. So we're going to list sí or cierto there. En número dos, we see that los chicos practican fútbol, or the boys practice soccer. What we can see here, verdad, cierto, they are practicing soccer. So we're going to list that one as sí for cierto. I'd like for you to now please pause your audio and give numbers 3 through 6 a try. When you're ready, you can click play and we'll come back together. All right, so in número 3, we see that José escala la montaña, or José climbs the mountain or scales the mountain. Well, falso. José juega al tenis aquí, no escala la montaña. So he's playing tennis. En número 4, we have that Don Fernando lee el periódico en el parque, or Don Fernando reads the newspaper in the park. Cierto, cierto, that's true. En número 5, Maribel patina, or Maribel skates. Falso. Maribel no patina. Maribel usa la computadora, Maribel envía un correo electrónico, pero Maribel no patina. En número 6, we see that Doña Leonor pasea por la ciudad. That Doña Leonora, she's walking through the city. It does appear that she's in a city environment. Maybe she's walking up some stairs there, walking around with her purse. So I would say cierto there. All right. One more little vocab activity for you here. This is a conversation between two people, Luisa y Pablo, who are dos amigos, two friends. And your job is to fill in these words from the word bank to see which one best fits each sentence. So, en número uno, Luisa is speaking, and she asks, ¿Cómo te gusta blank los ratos libres, Pablo? So how do you like to blank your free time, Pablo? Well, how do you like to spend or pass your free time? So we're going to fill in the blank there with pasar, to pass or spend. Pablo responds in the second paragraph here and says, Bueno, Luisa, no tengo mucho blank libre. So, okay, Luisa, well, the truth is, I don't have a lot of free blank. Well, Luisa, I don't have a lot of free time. No tengo mucho tiempo libre. Pero los fines de blank me gusta ver películas. But on the ends of the blank, I like to watch movies. Well, on the ends of the week, los fines de semana, which we refer to as the weekends, los fines de semana. ¿Y tú, Luisa? ¿Cuáles son tus blank favoritos? And you, Luisa, what are your blank favorites? Well, what are your favorite pastimes? ¿Cuáles son tus pasatiempos favoritos? All right, so I've given you the gist here, kind of have gotten you started with numbers 1 through 4. I'd like for you guys to finish reading the rest of the story here, the rest of the conversation, and fill in the blanks accordingly. When you're ready, you can click play, and we'll check all of your answers together. All right, so Luisa responds to this question, what are your favorite pastimes? And she says, nadar en la blank, practicar blank, y correr en el blank. So Luisa likes to swim in the blank, practice blank, and run in the blank. Well, she likes to swim in the pool, nadar en la piscina, practice sports, practicar deportes, or more specifically there, practicar voleibol, and correr en el blank, and run in the parque, in the park. Pablo responds, Uf, ¿y qué haces para descansar? What do you do to relax? And Luisa says, well, me gusta ver películas también. I like to watch movies also. And Pablo says, excelente. ¿Hay una buena película en un blank del blank? ¿Quiere decir? So he says, excellent, there's a good movie in the blank of the blank. Do you want to go? Well, there's a good movie in the movie theater of the downtown area, en un cine del centro. Good movie going on in the downtown movie theater. ¿Quieres ir? Do you want to go? And Luis says, sí, Pablo, buena idea. Yes, Pablo, of course, what a good idea. So again, hopefully you're seeing all these vocab words in your chapter come to life. I think this particular chapter is probably the most vocab heavy in terms of new words. So for that reason, I wanted to give you a third vocabulary practice activity. I know I usually only do two, but I wanted to give you three here just so you have plenty of practice. So hopefully you're feeling better about your vocab. As we move forward into the grammar for this chapter, I'd like to take a moment to discuss Gramática 4.1, or the verb ir. In this case, ir means to go, and I'd like for us to take some time. Just to recap again, our subject pronouns, you have all of these words listed here in your magical box of Spanish that you should be familiar with. So yo means I, tú, you, él, he, ella, she, usted, you formal, nosotros and nosotras, both mean we, and vosotros and vosotras, both mean you all in Spain. Ellos and ellas are they, and ustedes is you all. So a little recap there of your subject pronouns. As we conjugate the verb ir, it is an irregular verb. So it's not an IR verb like what you're used to, chopping off the ending and adding your endings like, say, escribir. It's not that kind of a verb. Ir is its own irregular verb. You do have to memorize its conjugations. And I have a trick for you. Ir means to go. So our conjugations here are voy, I go, vas, you go, va, he or she goes, vamos, we go, vais, you all in Spain go, and van, they or you all go. So I always tell my students to remember that they go in a van, man. They go in a van, man. Van means they go. So van, they go in a van, or they go in a van man. If you can remember van, you can kind of unlock all the rest of these endings because honestly, even though it is an irregular verb, it kind of follows the pattern of an irregular AR verb. As, amos, ais, an. So it's very, very similar. And then if you just remember voy and van, you can kind of unlock the rest of those in your brain. So maybe that's helpful to you. Some other things to note here, usually when we're using the verb ir, we're using this along with the preposition a, the letter A, pronounced as a. A means to. So we're usually using the verb ir to explain to where we're going. Now, typically, you'll have an article also following your preposition. So any type of definite article, el, la, los, las, because you're going to say you're going to the park, you're going to the movies, you're going to the mall, etc. So we talked about contractions in a previous lesson, and you learned that you're allowed to de la, you're allowed to de los, and you're allowed to de las, but you're not allowed to de el. In that case, de and el combines to give you del. Now, in this case, what happens is very, very similar. So you're allowed to ala, you're allowed to alos, and you're allowed to alas, but you're not allowed to a el. A and el combines to give us al. So you can kind of think about this in terms of just basic pronunciation. In all of these, they have a vowel, the letter A, along with a consonant, the letter L. So they kind of roll off the tongue quickly. Ala, alos, alas. But a and el, you have two vowels side by side. So if you say it quickly enough, ael, 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 al, you just kind of, you get there quickly enough. So for pronunciation purposes, these were combined to give us al in the Spanish contraction al. So, for example, instead of voy a el cine con María, we say voy al cine con María. I'm going to the movies with María. But it's totally fine to ala, alos, and alas, as we see here. Ellos van a las montañas. They're going to the mountains. So you can see all those together. It's also very common for you to combine some conjugated form of ir with a plus an infinitive in order to express an action that is going to happen in the future or something that you are going to do. So, for example, yo voy a buscar a Sara para ir al partido de fútbol. Well, I'm going to look for Sara in order to go to the soccer game. I'm going to look for her. Voy a buscar. So in this example, you saw the verb ir conjugated as voy. You had a in there, and then your infinitive was buscar. So voy a buscar a Sara. Over here, we see a question being asked. Vamos a ver el partido en un restaurante. Are we going to watch the game in a restaurant? Vamos a ver el partido en un restaurante. Okay. Also, in addition to this whole like something you're going to do, ir plus a plus infinitive can also be translated as let's do something. So my favorite expression in Spanish, I say this all the time, vamos a ver. Let's see, we're going to see, vamos a ver. Or vamos a pasear, let's take a walk, let's do anything. Vamos a comer, let's eat. Vamos a beber, let's drink. So this can also communicate let's. One other thing to note about the verb ir, when you're asking a question with ir and you're trying to explain where we're going, instead of just donde, we should use actually a donde. So remember the difference. Donde means where, and a donde is to where. Literally in English, we should ask people, to where are you going? Not just where are you going, but to where are you going in order to be grammatically correct. So the same is true here in Spanish. We do actually say a donde vas, literally to where are you going. You can use donde if without the verb ir. So, ¿dónde estás? Where are you, for example? But if you're asking a question with the verb ir, trying to explain to where someone is going, you're going to use a dónde. All right, so I've given you a nice little recap there of the verb ir. I'd like for you to take a moment now to practice a little bit. It tells us that Roberto has gone to see Doña Imelda, a fortune teller. So using ir plus a plus infinitive, I want you to tell us what Doña Imelda predicts. In the model, we see that tu hermano Gabriel blank ir a Europa. So your brother Gabriel blank to go to Europe. Well, your brother Gabriel is going to go. Tu hermano Gabriel va a ir a Europa. So in this case, we just conjugated ir along with your brother Gabriel or he, and we received va. The a that's in between is because of that construction, ir plus a plus an infinitive. In número uno, Doña Imelda tells Roberto that tú blanca correr en el maratón de Boston. So you are going to run in the Boston Marathon. Well, if you are going to do something, we want to select the ir conjugation that goes along with tú. So we should say tú vas, and you're going to run. Tú vas a correr en el maratón de Boston. En número dos, tú y tu familia blank escalar el monte Everest. So you and your family are going to scale, you're going to climb Mount Everest. Well, that's something that you guys are going to do, you and your family, you guys. So we should use the plural form of you, that bottom right box. And we're going to say that tú y tu familia van a escalar el monte Everest. Okay, I've given you a few examples here, so hopefully you feel comfortable with these. I'd like for you to now take a moment to try numbers 3, 4, and 5 on your own. When you're ready, you can click play and check your answers. All right, so let's check these out. En número 3, we see that tu primo Pablo blank visitar las ruinas mayas. So your cousin Pablo is going to visit the Mayan ruins. Well, your cousin Pablo, he is going to visit. We should say that tu primo Pablo va a visitar las ruinas mayas. So he is going to visit the Mayan ruins. En número 4, tu hermana Tina blank recibir una carta misteriosa. So your sister Tina is going to receive a mysterious letter. Well, to say that she is going to receive, again, we're going to use the ella form of ir, which is va, and she's going to receive, va a recibir. That same ir plus a plus infinitive construction used throughout. And last one, número 5, tu hermana Rosario blank patinar en los Juegos Olímpicos. So your sister Rosario is going to skate in the Olympic Games. So she is going to skate, tu hermana Rosario. So again, we're going to say that va a patinar. She is going to skate. Okay, hopefully you're feeling better about the verb ir and its common use as ir plus a plus infinitive. As we move into our second grammar point for chapter 4, Gramática 4.2, we're going to talk about stem changing verbs. It just so happens the grammar point for 4.3 is also stem changing verbs. So I kind of put these together a little bit in a way that I thought would make more sense for your learning. So grammar 4.2 is specific to only E to IE stem changing verbs and O to UE stem changing verbs. But there are actually four types in Spanish. Our four types of stem changers are E to IE, O to UE, E to I, and U to UE. We're going to start with just E to IE, and we'll kind of break these down as we go. So beginning with these E to IE stem changers, let's take a verb that you're already familiar with. You know how to conjugate verbs. You know how this process works, right? If I didn't tell you anything at all about querer, you would tell me, oh, señor, I know how to conjugate these. I'm going to chop off the ER. I'm going to carry down the QUER, and I'm going to add back those regular ER endings. O, es, e, hemos, es, en. Done. Okay, you're really close. There is an additional step here that happens with querer. First, what happens is that we have to change this E, the middle E here, to an IE. We know it's not going to be the last ER that's changing to an IE because that always gets chopped off anyway as you add your new endings. So in this case, querer is a stem changing verb. We change our E to IE, and then we chop off our ER and add those normal endings. O, es, e, hemos, es, en. So we end up with something like quiero, quieres, quiere, queremos, querréis, and quieren. Now, the verb querer means to want. So we have here quiero, I want, quieres, you want, quiere, he, she, or you formal wants, queremos, we want, querréis, you formal want, and quieren, they want or you all want. Now, to help you remember the verb querer, there is a very corny little song. And as always, I'm going to disconnect my AirPods so that you can hear the song. Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. This song, not really a song actually, this video is actually a commercial from Taco Bell from several years ago. Um, and it's going to show you a little Chihuahua. And the Chihuahua uses the verb querer, and he knows his stem changer. He says, Yo quiero Taco Bell. And hopefully hearing that will help you recall when you see this verb, it's a stem changer. So let me show you a quick little video.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
So yo quiero Taco Bell. So you get this experience with some Taco Bell there. Okay, let me connect back to my AirPods so you can hear me. Okay, awesome. Hopefully you can still hear me okay, and hopefully that video will help you remember querer means to want, and the little Chihuahua says, Yo quiero Taco Bell. I want some Taco Bell. Now, there are a ton of stem changing verbs in the Spanish language. I'll give you some popular ones here in a moment, but first I want to make sure you have a really, really good understanding of how to conjugate these stem changing verbs. Now, if we were in a physical classroom together, I would ask you to grab out like a little whiteboard, and I'd give you a marker and an eraser, and I would have you practice these in person and hold them up and show me that you know how to conjugate them. Before we get to that point, though, I want to make sure, obviously, we're here in an online class, so I'm not able to give you that same experience necessarily, but I would ask for you to please grab out a piece of paper, something to write with. Make sure that you are able to conjugate these as we go. Okay, so the verb empezar means to begin, or you might even say to start. And as you conjugate the verb empezar, we've told you that it's an E to IE stem changer. Well, you look at this and you go, oh my gosh, Mr. Harrison, there's two E's. Which one am I changing? Well, it's never going to be the very, very first letter of a word, and it's never going to be like the ending. I know this is an AR verb, but if it were an ER verb, it wouldn't be that one either because you're already chopping that one off, and it's not going to be the first letter. So it has to be this middle E. So our first step as we conjugate empezar is we carry the verb down into all the boxes. Step two, we go ahead and change this E to an IE. But you may notice it only changes to an IE when it's in the yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. It does not change in the nosotros or vosotros forms. Just like with querer, we had quiero, quieres, quiere, but we had queremos, quieres, and quieren. Querer was a stem changing verb also. We didn't change it to an IE when it was in the nosotros or the vosotros. So that same process is true here, and that works for all stem changers. So again, step one, we carry down the empezar in all the boxes. Step two, we change our E, usually the middle E, to an IE, only when it's in the yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. And then step two, we chop off the AR in all of our verbs, and we add our normal AR endings back. So I start empiezo. You start empiezas. He or she starts empieza, but we start empezamos. You all in Spain start empezáis, and they start empiezan. So you can see these two forms up here were not affected. And I can kind of hear your thoughts. Well, gosh, Senor Harrison, how am I going to remember not to do it in the nosotros and the vosotros? Like, oh, okay. So a lot of times, Spanish teachers will nickname these boot verbs because they only change in those boxes, the ones that are inside of the boot in the picture that you're seeing. So in the yo form, in the tú form, in the él, ella, usted, and in the ellos, ellas, ustedes. Up here in the nosotros and the vosotros, there's no change. There's nothing happening there. So it's remaining as an E there. Hopefully that helps kind of illustrate what you're expecting. Next up, we have the verb pensar. Pensar means to think. I'd like for you to take a moment on your own to try conjugating the verb pensar. When you're ready, click play and we'll go through it together. All right, so pensar. We know that pensar means to think. As we go through and conjugate the verb pensar, we're going to change. First, we're going to carry down pensar in every box. We're going to change the E. And in this case, there is only one E, so we know which one. Change our E to an IE in all of our boxes except for the nosotros and vosotros, because those are not in the boot. We're going to leave those alone. Next up, we chop off our AR throughout, and then we add our new endings. So, pienso, I think. Piensas, you think. Piensa, he or she thinks. Pensamos, we think. Pensáis, you all in Spain think. And piensan, they think or you all think. A common thing to note here, comenzar and empezar are commonly used with the preposition a when they're followed by an infinitive. So in the examples we see comenzamos a jugar a las 7. We are beginning or we start to play at 7. So following comenzar before the infinitive, you need the a in there. Another example, Ana empieza a trabajar hoy. So she is starting to work today, or she begins to work today. I know it kind of sounds like you're saying begins to work or starts to play, since literally both trabajar and jugar do mean to work and to play. You already have that to built in. But in this case, it is correct in Spanish to have the a before your infinitive after empezar or comenzar. So just keep that in mind. I told you earlier that pensar means to think, and that's true. A secondary definition of pensar is that it can also mean to plan or to intend to do something. Um, this is when it's commonly followed by an infinitive. So, an example there, we see piensan ir al gimnasio. Are you planning to go to the gym? Do you intend to go to the gym, we might ask? And someone would respond, sí, pensamos ir al mediodía. Yes, we are planning to go at noon, or we intend to go at noon. So, pensar by itself, to think. Pensar plus an infinitive, to plan to or intend to do something. And lastly, pensar, when followed by the preposition in, means to think about someone or something. So an example of pensar in, at the bottom we see en qué piensas, literally in what are you thinking or what are you thinking about? And a logical response to that, well, pienso en el examen final. I'm thinking about the final. All right. So we've talked a great deal about E to IE stem changers. You've learned some common E to IE stem changers, pensar, querer, etc. Next up, I want to move forward to talk to you about another type of stem changer. These are O to UE stem changers. So luckily for you, these all work the same way. Once you learn how to do one type of them, you can do all the rest of them because you know they only stem change when they're in the boot. So here we're given the verb poder. Poder means to be able to. As we conjugate poder, our first step is to carry down poder in all of the boxes. Step two, we're going to change our O to a UE only when it's inside the boot. So basically everywhere except for the nosotros and vosotros forms. Next, we're going to chop off our ER, and then we're going to add our regular ER endings back since this was an ER verb. So we end up with puedo, I can, or I'm able to. Puedes, you can, or you're able to. Puede, he or she can, or he or she is able to. Podemos, we can, or we're able to. Podéis, you all in Spain can, or you all in Spain are able to. And lastly, pueden, they or you all can, or they or you all are able to. So you kind of understand the process now for stem changers. You can see that it happens only when it's in the boot. You just have to know which type of stem changer is which. Let's look at another O to UE. And there's another demonstration of poder. Um, Another common O to UE stem changer is the verb encontrar. Encontrar means to find. My students often tell me that encontrar kind of looks like the word to encounter. So you can think about that the same way, encontrar, to find or to encounter something. We're going to do the same thing with encontrar. We're going to carry it down in all the boxes. We're going to change our O to UE only when it's in the boot. We're going to chop off our AR, and we're going to add our new endings. Now, notice encontrar was an AR verb, so this time we're adding AR verb endings. We get encuentro, I find. Encuentras, you find. Encuentra, he or she finds. Encontramos, we find. Encontráis, you all in Spain find. And encuentran, they find. So lots of fun examples there. Um, I'd like for you now to try on your own, after seeing how a few of these work, I'd like for you guys to please try the verb volver. Volver means to return. My students often tell me when they look at the verb volver, it reminds them of Voldemort. And you know, Voldemort returned from the dead. So volver, maybe that'll help you remember. Volver is an O to UE stem change. So please give this one a try. When you're ready, you can click play and we'll take a look at these together. All right, so as always, our first step, we're going to carry down volver in all the boxes. We're going to change our O to a UE only when it's inside the boot. We're going to chop off our ER, and we're going to add our new endings. For an ER verb, that's o, es, hemos, eis, and en. And we end up with the final answer of vuelvo, I return. Vuelves, you return. Vuelve, he or she returns. Volvemos, we return. Volvéis, you all in Spain return. And vuelven, they or you all return. In this situation, we are able to see all of these conjugations totally completed. Now, a common error that I see on your quizzes or your tests is this is one that students just forget to stem change sometimes. Like it's just easy. There's a lot of them. You just forget this one sometimes. It's okay. So if you do accidentally forget your stem changer with volver and you just chop off the ER and you add back an O, you get the word Volvo, like the car brand, right? So I always tell my students, unless you're buying Mr. Harrison a Volvo, Volvo is not the right answer. It's got to be Vuelvo. So if you for some reason start typing Volvo and you're not on the Volvo website ordering Mr. Harrison a new electric Volvo, then I don't think that's the right answer. So just keep that in mind that your O is going to change to a UE and you're going to get Vuelvo. Maybe that'll help you remember. Okay, so we're halfway through our stem changers. You know how to do E to I stem changers. You know how to do O to UE stem changers. Um, One thing I want to quickly note, I just want to jump down to the U to UEs. I'm going to save the E to I for just a minute after I give you some practice, but I want to go to the U to E stem changers because you already know how these work. The good news is there's only one U to UE stem changer in the entire Spanish language, and that is the verb jugar, which means to play, as in to play a sport or play a game, jugar. Usually, jugar is always followed by the letter A, followed by a definite article, and then a sport. So yo juego, and then you kind of start out with that whole issue of having an abbreviation again. Yo juego a el voleibol. Well, we know that we can't a and el, so that a and the definite article el are going to combine to give us al. So generally, you're always writing yo juego al plus a sport. So juego al voleibol, juego al tenis, juego al fútbol, etc. And I know that there's tons of stem changers as well, and we've talked about just a few so far, your E to IEs, your O to UEs. When you see these in your textbook and actually on your vocab list in the book, and as you're doing your activities, they're listed, it will tell you in parentheses next to the verb what type of stem changer it is. So for example, empezar was an E to IE stem changer. Volver was an O to UE stem changer. So you can see how those are labeled there. So obviously, there's only one UDV stem changer, so we'll just do this one together. For jugar, we're going to do what we did with all of our other verbs. We're going to carry down jugar in all the boxes. We're going to change our U to UE. We're going to chop off our AR, and then we're going to go back and add our normal AR endings. So I play juego. You play juegas. He or she plays juega. We play jugamos. You all in Spain play jugáis, and they play, or y'all play, juegan. Here are some other common E to IE and O to UE verbs. What I suggest, if you're the kind of person you study with flashcards, or even if you're using the virtual flashcards online, whatever, Quizlet, whatever it is, however you prefer to study, I recommend that when you put the English meaning of the word on the other side of the card, that you also put the type of stem change that it has. So like cerrar means to close. As you're writing cerrar, next to it, just go ahead and have your E to IE, so we know that it means to close. Up next, we have comenzar, which you've learned before, means to begin or to start. Empezar is a synonym of comenzar, also to begin or to start. You can swap those around. They're interchangeable. You get to choose which one you like more. We have entender, which is to understand. Pensar, to think. Perder, to lose, like to lose a game, or sometimes to miss, like to miss a phone call. Preferir, to prefer. And querer, to want, or in some cases, querer can also mean to love. Over on the O to UE side, we have dormir, to sleep. Encontrar, to find. Mostrar, to show. Poder, to be able to. Recordar, to remember. And lastly, volver, to return. Obviously, jugar is also listed here, but it is a U to UE stem changer, not an O to UE. All right, so now you know three of the four types of stem changes. You know about E to IE verbs, you know about O to UEs, and you know about the one U to UE verb that exists, jugar. So now it's time for you to have a little bit of time to practice. So it tells us in this activity, it is el día del partido. It's game day, el día del partido. So as we take a look at this activity, you can see a conversation between Pablo and Oscar. In the model, Pablo says, Oscar, yo voy al centro ahora. ¿Querer venir? So, hey, Oscar, I'm going downtown right now. Do you want to come? So we ask, do you want to come? We take the verb querer, we change our E to an IE, chop off our ER, and this is the to form. We're asking, do you want to do something? So we're going to add the ES. ¿Quieres venir? Do you want to come? Oscar responds and says, no, los fines de semana yo preferir descansar un poco y mirar la televisión. So no, on the weekends, I prefer to relax a little bit and watch TV. So on the weekends, I prefer to do those things. We're going to take the verb preferir. We know it's a stem changer from E to IE. Now, preferir does have two E's. It is actually the second E that changes to an IE. So we're going to go ahead and do that, change our E to an IE. We're going to chop off this IR on the end. And we're saying that I prefer, our subject was yo. So no, los fines de semana yo prefiero descansar un poco y mirar la televisión. So I prefer to relax a little and watch TV. So we've used prefiero. Pablo responds, "Qué perezoso eres." How lazy you are. How lazy. In response to that, Oscar comes back, "No, hombre. Nah, man." And then he proceeds to continue his conversation. I'd like for you now to take a moment to pause your audio. I'd like for you to finish this conversation and see how you do with these. All right, let's take a moment and check your answers. So, man, how lazy you are. Nah, man. Es que yo no dormir mucho de lunes a viernes. It's that I don't sleep a lot from Monday through Friday. Well, I don't sleep a lot from Monday through Friday. If I don't sleep, we're going to take this verb dormir. We know that it is a stem change from O to UE. So we'll go ahead and change that. Next, we're going to chop off our IR and add back the appropriate ending for the yo form, which is an O. So we should say, es que yo no duermo mucho de lunes a viernes. It's that I don't sleep a lot from Monday through Friday. And then he responds that volver a casa a la medianoche. So I return to the house at midnight. Well, I return to the house. We're going to take this term volver. We know it's an O to UE stem changer. And we're going to chop off our ER. And if I don't return, we're going to add back an O. Vuelvo a casa a la medianoche. I return at midnight. And Pablo says, lo siento. ¿Y pensar ver el partido de fútbol hoy? And I'm sorry. And do you plan to see the soccer game today? Well, he's asking, do you plan? So we want to take this verb pensar, which we know does have a stem change from E to IE. We're going to chop off our AR in pensar, and we're asking, do you plan? ¿Y tú piensas ver el partido de fútbol hoy? And then he says lastly that empezar a las cuatro. It begins at 4. We're going to take the verb empezar. To say that it begins, we're going to change our E to an IE, chop off our AR, and say that it begins, empieza a las cuatro. All right. I feel like you've got enough practice with these, so I'm going to skip through these really fast and move on to our next part of the lesson about stem changing verbs. So as I said, your book kind of breaks it up into just teaching you the E to IEs, the O to UEs, and the U to UEs first in 4.2, and then it adds the E to I stem changers last in lesson 4.3. So luckily, once you already understand that stem changing process, once you can do one of them, you can do all of them. So the difference is you just have to know what type of verb is which. So for example, here we're given the verb repetir, which means to repeat. We know that repetir has a stem change from E to I, not E to IE, just E to I. Now, repetir does have 2 E's. So in this case, it is the second E that changes. As we change that E to an I, we'll do that only in the boxes that are in the boot. So AKA not the nosotros or the vosotros, just the other boxes. We go through and we chop off the IR and we add our appropriate endings. So I repeat, repito. You repeat, repites. He or she repeats, repite. But we repeat, repetimos. You all in Spain repeat, repetís. And they repeat, repiten. So again, you can see our E change to an I only when it's inside the boot. I'd like for you to try the verb servir on your own. Show us that you know how to change these verbs. Again, servir is an E to I stem changing verb. So when you're ready, you can click play and we'll take a look at these together. So as we begin with servir, to serve, we're going to carry down servir in all of our boxes. We're going to change our E to an I only when it's inside the boot, so not in the nosotros or vosotros forms. We're going to chop off our IR in servir, and we're going to add the appropriate endings. O, es, e, imos, is, and en. In doing so, we get verbs like sirvo, I serve, sirves, you serve, sirve, he or she serves, servimos, we serve, servis, you all in Spain serve, and sirven, they or you all serve. The same is true of the verb pedir, which means to order or ask for. I'd like for you to try this one on your papers as well, and then we'll come back together. Okay, so same process here with pedir that you were doing with all of your other verbs. We're going to carry down pedir in all the boxes. We're going to change our E to an I when it's inside the boot. Chop off our IR and add the appropriate endings. O, es, e, imos, is, and en. So we end up with pido, I order. Pides, you order. Pide, he or she orders. Pedimos, we order. Pedís, you all in Spain order. And piden, they order. All right, so there are tons of E to I stem changers, just like the list of E to IEs and O to UEs you saw earlier. There are tons of E to Is. There are 3 that are really, really common that are used in this chapter a lot. So if you have to kind of take note of them, you've already seen a few. You saw pedir, you saw servir, you saw repetir, all of those. Two new ones that I'd like to add are the verbs seguir, which means to follow, continue, or to keep on doing something. And associated with that, we have conseguir, which means to get or to obtain. So seguir, to follow, continue, or keep on doing. Conseguir, to get or obtain. These are all E to I stem changers, not E to IE, just E to I. And you see some examples. So, repito la pregunta. I repeat the question. Sigue una dieta especial. He's on a special diet. Consiguen ver buenas películas. They get to see good movies. It is important for you to note that the yo forms of these two verbs, of seguir and conseguir, they have both a stem change and a spelling change in the yo form. So they're just super weird. You kind of have to memorize that the yo form is sigo and consigo. Basically, with these, you're taking off the UIR and not just the IR in the yo form. That's the big difference. So we get sigo and consigo. All the others that you already learned about, pedir, servir, repetir, those are all totally normal, and you're just changing the E to an I. It's just these, conseguir and seguir, that have the irregular yo form of sigo and consigo. All the other forms work as normal, and they still have the U. So, sigues, sigue, seguimos, seguís, siguen. Consigue, consigues, consigue, conseguimos, conseguís, consiguen. So again, all of them are going to keep that U except for the yo form. It's just sigo and consigo that are a little funky. Okay, so I've been talking for a while. Let's give you a moment to practice these. And these are all E to I stem changing verbs, just so you know. Okay, just E to I to make your life a little easier. Let's look at an example. The model tells us that mis tíos seguir el partido de fútbol por televisión. So my uncles are following the soccer game on TV. So to say that they are following, we took this verb seguir, we changed our E to an I, we chopped off our IR, and we said that mis tíos siguen el partido de fútbol por televisión. In número uno, we're talking about mi madre, and it tells us that mi madre va a un café y pedir un cappuccino. So my mom goes to a coffee shop and she orders a cappuccino. We want to change this verb from to order, pedir, to say that she orders. So our first step, we need to take the verb pedir, we need to change our E to an I, drop off our IR on the end, and we should say that my mom, that she orders. Y pide un cappuccino. En número dos, mi padre va a la biblioteca y conseguir buenas películas. So my dad goes to the library and he gets some good movies. So he goes to the library and he gets some good movies. We want to take this verb conseguir and change it from to get to he gets. So we're going to take that E in conseguir, we're going to change it to an I. I'm going to chop off our IR and say that he gets. Y consigue buenas películas. En número tres, mi hermano menor seguir mis instrucciones. So my younger brother to follow my instructions. Well, to say that he follows my instructions, we're going to take seguir, change our E to an I, chop off our IR, and say that he follows. Mi hermano sigue mis instrucciones. All right, so you've seen a few examples from me. I'd like for you to now pause your audio, give numbers 4, 5, and 6 a try, and when you're ready, you can click play and we'll check your answers. All right, so in número 4, it tells us that mis padres repetir la misma pregunta. ¿Dónde está tu hermana? So my parents repeat the same question. Where's your sister? Well, my parents, they repeat the same question. We're going to change it from to repeat into they repeat. We know that repetir has a stem change from E to I. Since there are two E's in repetir, I will tell you it is the second E that changes. We take that E, we change it to an I, we chop off our IR in repetir, and we should say that mis padres repiten la misma pregunta. ¿Dónde está tu hermana? En número 5, mi hermana y yo pedir permiso para volver a casa un poco más tarde. So my sister and I to ask for permission in order to return to the house just a little bit later. So my sister and I, we ask for permission. We're going to take that verb pedir. In this case, there is no stem change. What? Why not, Mr. Harrison? Well, in this case, mi hermana y yo, my sister and I, is it would fall under the we box or the nosotros box. Therefore, it's not inside of the boots. So mi hermana y yo pedimos permiso para volver a casa un poco más tarde. And lastly, we ask if seguir tú la misma rutina todos los fines de semana. Do you follow the same routine every weekend? We know that seguir does in fact have a stem change from E to I. We chop off our IR at the end, and we should ask, do you follow the same routine? ¿Sigues tú la misma rutina? So just be careful. Remember, these are only stem changing when they're inside the boot, so not in the nosotros or the vosotros form. You can it's easy to get in the process of things and miss that, so just keep that in mind. All right, I hope you're feeling better about stem changing verbs in the present tense. The last thing I'd like to talk to you about as a component of chapter 4 is Gramática 4.4 about irregular yo verbs. So you can see a series of different irregular yo verbs here listed: tener, traer, poner, hacer, salir, oír, decir, venir. There's a bunch of them. And we'll take a moment here to chat about those together. It's actually super common for verbs to be irregular. You already know about so many irregular verbs, right? You learned about ser and ir and tener. You know about so many of these. So we're just adding a few others that are irregular. The cool part is, unlike those verbs, ser, it was irregular in every form. It was soy, eres, es. Estar, it was irregular. Estoy, ir, voy, vas, va. They were irregular in all the forms. But here, our irregular yo forms are only irregular in the yo form. And we've actually nicknamed these yo-go verbs because the yo form always ends in go. So yes, they're irregular, they're go verbs. So some common verbs that you're going to see in this category are hacer, to do or to make, poner, to put or place, salir, to leave, suponer, to suppose, and traer, to bring. So, as we take a look at these options, these are all of your irregular yo verbs. We can see that hacer became hago. So I do or I make, hago. But in its other forms, it was normal. We just chopped off the ER and haces, hace, hacemos, haceis, hacen. So it's only irregular in the yo form. Everything else is totally normal. The same is true for the rest of these. Poner in the yo form becomes pongo, I put or I place. Salir becomes salgo, I leave. Suponer becomes supongo, or I suppose. And traer becomes traigo, or I bring. All the other forms are totally regular. So a few other little things to indicate here, just some side notes. Poner, it normally means to put or place. In the case of a household appliance, it means to turn on, literally to put on. So voy a poner el café. I'm gonna put on the coffee. I'm gonna turn on the coffee pot. Another example, Carlos pone la radio. He puts on the radio. He turns on the radio. Or María pone la televisión. She puts on the TV. Pone la televisión. Salir de is also used in order to indicate that someone is leaving a certain place. To me, this one just makes sense also. Salir is to leave. De means from, just like when you said soy de Estados Unidos or soy de Cuba. Same thing, to leave from. So salgo de casa muy temprano. I'm leaving from the house very early, or I leave home early. El tren sale de la estación a las 2. The train is leaving from the station at 2. So if you translate them literally, to put on, to leave from, those kind of make sense. We also use the word para after salir to say that you're leaving for somewhere, salir para. And this is usually almost always used to indicate someone's destination. So mañana salgo para México. Tomorrow I'm leaving for Mexico. Hoy salen para España. Today they leave for Spain. So again, these are kind of translated literally and they make sense that way. Additionally, we have salir con, which means to leave with someone or something. It can also mean in the old sense like to go out with, salir con, as in to go out on a date, salir con. So here we see that Alberto sale con su amigo. He's going out with his friend. Or hoy voy a salir con mi hermana. Today I'm going out with my sister. Or in the romantic sense, Raúl sale con una chica muy bonita. He's going out with a very pretty girl. So to leave with or to go out with romantically. Another irregular yo verb that appears here in this chapter is the verb ver. Ver means to see, and it's only irregular in the yo form. It's truly not that strange. With ver, if you were to chop off the er and just follow your normal endings, you would get vo. And that's not a word. Vo is not a word in Spanish. So the only reason ver is irregular is because instead of chopping off the er, you're really just chopping off the r. So you get veo, I see, and ves, you see, ve, he or she sees, so on and so forth. Um, all of these are normal aside from the yo form. Some other examples: ve a su abuela todos los domingos. He sees his grandmother every Sunday, all the Sundays. Nothing super irregular there, nothing weird. He sees. In the yo form, though, remember veo, veo. No veo el problema. I do not see the problem. The verb ver, in some contexts, in addition to see, it can also mean to watch. So, ¿cuándo vemos la película? When are we watching the movie? Veo las noticias por la mañana. I watch the news in the morning. So, ver can be to see or to watch. And lastly, we have the verb oír that also appears here in this chapter. Oír already has a written accent on the I. It means to hear. And it is a little bit weird in all of its forms, if I'm being honest. So it is an irregular yo verb or a yo-go verb because the yo form ends in go, where we get yo oigo, I hear. But there's also a spelling change in all the other forms, mostly just in the tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes, where the I changes to a Y. So in the yo form, oigo, go verb. In the tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes, changing that I to a Y, getting oyes, oye, and oyen. And then in the nosotros and the vosotros forms, it's even weird there. It's spelled and conjugated as normal, oímos and oís, but those I's get written accents, whereas they do not in any of the other forms. So, like I said, oír is just a little bit weird in all of its forms. You have to memorize the yo form as a yo-go, oigo. You have to remember your spelling change in the tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. Oyes, oye, and oyen. And you have to remember to accent your I and the nosotros and vosotros forms. Oímos and oís. So they're all just kind of slightly weird. These are ones that it's best to just memorize. Some examples: ¿Oyes la música? Do you hear the music? Or oigo a unas personas en la otra sala. I hear some other people in the other room. All right, so I've mixed all these together for you, a series of irregular yo verbs. I'd like for you to please give these a try. This is a conversation we see here between Ernesto and David. And Ernesto asks, hey, David, ¿qué hacer por la noche? What are you doing tonight? Well, we took that verb hacer and we conjugated it. Now, hacer is an irregular yo verb, but remember, it's only irregular in the yo form. We're asking David, hey, what are you doing tonight? So we're using the tú form, not the yo form. So in this case, hacer is totally regular. We just chop off our er and we add back an es. Hey, David, ¿qué haces por la noche? And David says, well, I'm going out with Luisa. So I'm going out. We're going to take this verb salir. We know that salir is one of our irregular yo verbs. It's a yo-go verb. The yo form becomes salgo, salgo. So I'm going out with Luisa. Vamos al cine. We're going to the movie theater. And queremos ver la nueva película de Almodóvar. So we want to see the new movie of Almodóvar. Well, be very careful here. We're saying that we want to see. So you're tempted to conjugate ver by saying we want, something like a lot of students put queremos vemos. We see the new movie. But in this case, that's not correct. We're trying to say that we want to see. So queremos ver la nueva película de Almodóvar. We want to see. And that's how we say it in English. We want to see. Queremos ver. So we leave ver in its unconjugated or infinitive form here because queremos is already conjugated and you cannot have two conjugated verbs side by side in Spanish. All right. Ernesto responds and says, ¿Y Diana? ¿Qué hacer ella? And Diana, what is she doing? Well, again, hacer is only irregular in the yo form. We're asking about ella, or she. What is she doing? We're going to chop off our er and ask, ¿Qué hace ella? What's she doing? David says back, well, salir a comer con sus padres. She's going out to eat with her parents. So she's going out to eat. We're going to take salir, chop off our IR, and say that ella sale. Sale a comer con sus padres. She's going out to eat with her parents. And Ernesto asks, well, ¿Qué hacer Andrés y Javier? What are Andrés and Javier doing? Well, what are they doing? Again, it's not the yo form, so no irregularities. Just chop off your ER and ¿Qué hacen? ¿Qué hacen Andrés y Javier? So I love irregular yo verbs because it prepares you for your final really well, in that it makes you think back to those ER and IR verbs in the previous chapter and just kind of keeps combining and bringing those things back. So I did several examples for you. I'd like for you now to take a moment and try doing a few on your own. David and Ernesto, they continue their conversation. This next sentence is still talking about Andrés and Javier. And David begins speaking, saying, Tienen que hacer las maletas. So I want you guys to take a moment, pause your audio, work out the rest of these, and when you're ready, you can click play, and we'll talk through them together. All right, so número 6. Tienen que hacer las maletas. They have to pack their bags. They have to literally make their bags. Well, if they have to pack their bags, remember the expression from our last chapter is tener que plus infinitive. So we actually just leave this one alone. Tienen que hacer las maletas. They have to pack their bags. And they have to do that because salir para Monterrey mañana. They have to do that because they're leaving for Monterrey tomorrow. Well, they're leaving. We're going to take salir, chop off our IR, and say that they're leaving. Salen para Monterrey mañana. Ernesto responds, well, ¿qué hacer yo entonces? What should I do then? In this case, it is the yo form that we're talking about. What should I do? So we conjugate hacer in the yo form, and we ask, ¿qué hago yo entonces? And David says, well, suponer que puedes estudiar o ver la televisión. I suppose that you can study or watch TV. Well, I suppose, be careful here, suponer has the word poner inside. We know that poner is irregular. Poner in the yo form becomes pongo. And in this case, su is a prefix in front of poner. So once pongo is conjugated, we just slap the su back in front. Supongo. Or I suppose. So I suppose that you can study or watch TV. Supongo que puedes estudiar o ver la televisión. In this case, we leave it as ver because you are able to study or to watch TV. In this case, it would sound weird to say you're able to study or you watch TV. Again, you also have a conjugated verb, and you cannot have two of those side by side. So Ernesto responds, well, no quiero estudiar. I do not want to study. Yo prefiero poner la televisión. In this case, I prefer to put on the television. Because we're saying to put on, and there's already a conjugated verb with prefiero, we also leave this one alone in saying prefiero poner. I prefer to turn on the TV. I prefer to put on the TV. All right. I hope that this video has been helpful to you in understanding your vocabulary related to pastimes and sports, places in a city. I hope you feel more comfortable using ir plus a plus an infinitive to say where you're going or what you're going to do. And I hope you feel better about stem changing verbs and irregular yo verbs. As always, if there's anything that you still have questions about, or just if you get stuck on an activity, feel free anytime to take a screenshot, email it to me, and I'm more than happy to work through it with you. We can take a look together and answer any questions you have. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you soon, and take care. Gracias, ciao, adios.